Hey, listen, man. I don't even know how we start this show today, except for to say, man, on today's Agee and Hoop Dreams podcast, we got somebody that's legendary. I just gotta put all the credentials out there, man. A legendary sports writer, commentator, educator. He's worked with ESPN, the LA Times, the Washington Post, and of course, our hometown, the Chicago Sun-Times. I mean, he's covered everything from the Stanley Cup finals to the Olympics, the Super Bowl, World Series, World Cup, Wimbledon, U.S. Open, the Masters, and get this, Agee, 20 times the NBA Finals. Come on, man. He's putting some work in. But he is now currently the director of sports journalism at Northwestern University, sitting up there in Evanston, Illinois. We'd like to welcome to the show, the Agee and Hoop Dreams podcast, the one, the only, none other than himself, Mr. J.A. ADANDE. Man, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Left one thing out, though, man. I got to get it before you.
You said you left one thing out, though.
Yeah, that Hall of Fame ring.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Hall of Fame.
Hall of Famer. That's right. That's right. That's right.
As of last month.
That's right. That's
the
right.
bio might not have been updated, but no, that's my
Fame.
That's my
Well
crowning
deserved,
achievement.
man.
It's funny because after the panel that we did at the University of Chicago on the 30th anniversary of Hoop Dreams, a couple young, they're about the age you guys were at the time of the movie, and they asked me how I get to where I want to go, and this, that, the other, and I said actually the best thing for me was having my dreams crushed at an early age, because it allowed me to pivot to something more realistic. I realized by 8th grade that NBA wasn't happening for me, because I was about 5'3". Everyone else hit their growth spurt,
Right.
and I got stuck below 5'5", and I didn't grow for another 4 or 5 years. My growth came late in the game, junior, senior year of high school. So I realized, all right, time for plan B. But it allowed me to exceed my dreams, right? Because I didn't realistically think I could make it to the Hall of Fame as a basketball player, right? I would have been happy just to make it to the NBA. But by going in this different direction and pursuing that media career, I was able to get to the Hall of Fame.
And not just the Hall of Fame, but you have experienced, without, like you say, without the sore backs, the sore knees, the broken ankles, you have achieved the ultimate hoop dreams. I mean, NBA Hall of Fame. I mean, you get no greater than that. But Jay,
it's funny, Will, because Arthur's guy Isaiah Thomas, the weekend I got in, I went up to All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis, and I was talking with Isaiah, and he said, he was like, man, your way of making it is better, because for all the things you just said, Will, your knees feel good, your back feels good. He's like, I would rather have done it your way.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
That's the truth. Well, listen, Jay, our show is a little bit different. Obviously, we won't talk about all the sports stuff that we can, but man, we want our audience to know you. But we asked every guest this first. We know you've seen Hoop Dreams, and thank you, man, for doing the thing. The show with us last weekend in Chicago. But when you first saw Hoop Dreams, what were your initial thoughts?
First, it was a game changer, right? We just hadn't seen something in that format tell the story from that perspective, and spend so much time on an often underlooked place in our society, right? The West Side or the South Side of Chicago. These weren't the places that you were seeing on the movie screens. Yeah. So to see that world highlighted and focused on, and just to again, it keeps going back to the dreams, just that pursuit and that hunger, and the main thing was the persistence of you guys, all the adversity and the obstacles, and just how the dream persisted right through the very end. I'm trying to remember that my initial thoughts seeing it back 30 years ago. But I feel like that's what stuck with me. And I think those are the reasons that this has lasted so long and it still remains relevant 3 decades later.
Yeah.
Yeah, Agee and I find it incredible, man. Here we are, 3 decades later, talking about hoop dreams. And we don't even got a gym shoe yet. I don't know what's up, but I think we need a gym shoe by now. So I was like that.
Come on,
We
man.
should be up to like the Hoop Dream 7 by now.
Right.
Literally.
Right.
Literally.
Or maybe the 8s.
Something. Yeah. But at this point, we'll just take the HD1.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Man, tell us about you. Where did you grow up? How was, childhood like for you?
I grew up mostly in Santa Monica, California. We lived in San Jose for a year and moved to New York for a year, which was where my mom was from, and then moved back. And, it was a peaceful time, a very diverse community. We'd have friends group of like all different races represented. And summertime especially, it was just hoops and the beach.
Wow.
Go down to the boys club and hoop. And then the days we weren't hooping at the boys club, we go down to the beach and hang out. And, I feel so fortunate to have grown up there at that time. And Santa Monica today, people think of it as like a Beverly Hills type, but back then it was really just a sleepy community, kind of when the hippies, settled down and started to have families, that's where they lived. And, we were all able to live there. It was one of the first places in the nation with rent control. And so it really enabled working class people to live there and to stay there. And, so you were able to have some diversity in the city because it wasn't as exclusive as it is now. And so, I grew up, the big blessing was I didn't have fear or worry. My mom worked hard. I was a latchkey kid. That was the term back then, right? Like, single moms. And most of my friends, we were all single kids from single moms, and our moms were working. And we'd come home after school and have to let ourselves in, and it just come home and watch cartoons or go to the boys club after school. Best deal in town, man. It was $3.50 a year.
Yes.
Or I'm sure you guys as parents now can appreciate having supervised activities for your kids for $3.50 a year. That meant the world to them. Or 2 years for $5. That was the special deal.
Get the special deal.
The special 2 years for $5, save $1.50.
Wow.
But so that was my world, and it was a safe environment, and I was allowed to just play basketball as much as I wanted to, man, and that's what that's how you made your friends, was on the basketball court, and people from the rich part of town, from the poor part of town, the middle part, which was where I lived, and we'd all be at the boys club playing basketball together.
So you lived in all 3 big markets, New York, LA, and Chicago.
Yeah. Lived in New York for a little bit, spent time working in DC. So even though we weren't in New York, being on the East Coast made a difference. Like being a part of that East Coast media, that kind of Boston, New York, Washington corridor. It's funny. People treated me differently. There was one big time writer. I remember when I met him when I was working at the Chicago Sun-Times, it was kind of like, but then once I was working at the Washington Post, now I was part of the club. And so it was interesting the different ways people,
you can't do that to us, man. You can't do that to us. You can't.
I didn't do it. He did it to me.
I'm saying you can't throw that. I'm saying you can't throw it out there and don't give us no name.
Oh no! I got to protect.
Look, Jay, like, no.
Listen, you said you grew up single parent home. Any siblings?
So my father, my mom and I weren't with my father. He was in Paris, actually. So my mom met him in Paris, and I was born in the U.S. And then we moved back there when I was young. I don't have any memories of it, and it didn't work out, so we moved back. So he later remarried and had 2 kids. So I do have 2 siblings. It's funny, the people that grew up with me think of me as the only child, and I describe myself as the only child. But I do have siblings. Okay. But I just didn't grow up with them, and I'm a lot older than them, so it's almost more like cousins than siblings.
Siblings, right.
My brother is in Paris, and my sister moved to Vancouver, which is my favorite city in North America. and she had a daughter and now a son that was born this year. So I'm an uncle. I have a niece and nephew, and I love going to Vancouver to see them. I just went back there this summer.
You should have said that. Now Matt, our producer's on the show, man, he's gonna love that. He's like, Vancouver, that's him. That's him. Your career, man, is so amazing, and I read off a list of things, but tell us, as you was growing up through high school, like, where did that bug, was it always there to get into some level of journalism, or were you just like, you know what, I'm gonna just filter my way, or were you playing like you was a journalist back, you know, when you was coming through high school?
You know what, I was the journalist. Like I said, I was aware early on that I wasn't going to be a player. So I played for a couple years, and then my knee got messed up, and so that was really, really the time to get serious. And again, it was a blessing because I wouldn't have been able to be an editor at the school paper and be the sports editor if I was playing, and you know, the time commitment that it would have taken to be on the team. So you know, that looked a lot better on my resume applying for or my applications applying for colleges, that I could put sports editor and editor in chief of the school paper. But yeah, I was working toward it. That was my goal. I would do play-by-play on the game film for the coach, you know, would have somebody videotape the game so that, you know, they could watch it and break down the film. And I just got a microphone and plugged it into the camera and just did play-by-play. No one was watching it except for the coach and the team. Right. So it wasn't like I had a big audience, but I just wanted to do it. And then I would write stories for the school paper, and then I got to college, and it's funny, like that bug that you talked about, Will, got me in high school, and then I just got used to seeing my name in the paper. And when I got to Northwestern, they said, you know, take some time, get acclimated, you know, get adjusted to your classes. Don't start working at the school paper as a freshman. And I couldn't stand seeing that paper come out and my name wasn't in it. You know, I got so used to seeing my name in the paper. And I was like, they can't do this without me. I got to have my name in that paper. So I went in, you know, I did a couple of things my first quarter, fall quarter, and then that winter I started covering the women's basketball team. And then, you know, it's funny, I just remembered my freshman or sophomore year, they actually played USC and Lisa Leslie. And they beat them. And they were actually the higher ranked team at that time. I think that was my sophomore year, actually. But so covered the women's basketball team that year, the baseball team in the spring, and then in the next year, my sophomore year, I covered football and men's basketball.
Interesting. Fun fact too, man. Speaking of your alma mater, you know, one of my family members. He knows you very well, Adrian Autry. Does that name sound familiar to you?
Yeah, he hit me up on I think Facebook. I think after the thing, so oh man.
His sister is married to my brother.
Yeah.
Small world. Small world.
So the in-law.
Absolutely.
Northwestern football.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You're not true.
So, man, I just got to ask, because, again, with such an incredible resume, growing up through high school, give us some of those things, what it was like, man, particularly in California, because this is my impression of California. You said a little bit of earlier, beaches. I got a son living in California right now. When I go visit him, the first thing he say, Dad, we got to go to the beach. How do you, like, how did you, two questions on this one. One, how did you leave California? And the second is, when you're out there, how do you stay focused? Because when you hit that beach, it's another world. It's not the same. Like, I've been to Florida. Florida is not California as much as people think that it is. It is not.
Florida doesn't have mountains, for one. You start with that, among the many differences. But to your second question, it's a little easier to stay focused than you think, because when every day is like a nice sunny day, you don't feel compelled to get out there and be in the sunshine. In Chicago, when those nice weather days hit, like, you got to get out. You don't know when you're going to get another one of those. But in LA, you're like, today's going to be like this, the next day is going to be like this. So you don't feel pressed. You know, you can do your work because, you know, the sun will be there later and it'll be there tomorrow. So don't sweat it. So it's actually easier to focus. And the myth is that LA, everyone is just hanging out at the beach, but LA is actually a very hardworking town. The movie business starts early. A lot of times. So my stepfather was he was a location manager and a location scout. So his job was to find if the script said, okay, there's a scene at a school, right? High school. So he would have to go find a good place and negotiate with them so that they could use it. And then during the production, he'd kind of oversee all the things. You got to have police department members there for security. You got to make sure the food trucks are there. You got to shut down the streets, all those stuff. So you'd have to look out. But there are times you got to get to work, the shoot. You got to be there like 5 a.m. and then you're working till midnight, right?
Wow.
So much construction goes on there, I would joke with Bomani Jones, man. Somebody has to clean the pools and mow all those lawns, And so,
that's right.
So there's a reason when you get on the freeway at 5 a.m. and there's a lot of traffic. Why? Because people are going to work. Because it's a hard working town.
But what I do want to switch to is, man, I want to. Agee and I, we ask this question all the time too. Most of the kids who go into college and the athletes we've had on the show, like, what was your top 5 schools? You being a journalist, what were your top schools before deciding on Northwestern?
I was looking. I really locked in on Northwestern early because they had top journalism program, which was the number one thing I was looking for. And just kind of advice I like to give people is that when you have a goal, when you have a destination in mind, then the path becomes apparent to you, right? So knowing that I wanted to be a journalist, knowing that I wanted to get into sports media, the path became apparent. Now my selection process for college got narrowed down to what schools have good journalism programs. I remember writing a letter to the sports editor at the Washington Post and asking his advice. I had met him once. I had a cousin who was a freelance photographer at the Post, and she took me in to the paper, and I got to meet him, and I sent him a letter later just to, what schools would you recommend? And Northwestern was on that list. Georgetown, I got my Georgetown hoodie on for Dikembe. I bought this after Dikembe passed away, so it's kind of an honor. Dikembe Mutombo and John Thompson, but I'd actually visited the campus summer after my junior year of high school. I was on the East Coast, and I checked out Georgetown, and that was the peak of the Hoya era, right? 85, 86, 87. So you're coming off, they won the championship in 85, back in the Final Four in 85. So Georgetown was hot. That Georgetown starter jacket.
Yes.
I had it. Yeah. Absolutely.
I had it. Yes. Who had it?
Don't forget the shoes.
The Terminators.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Yeah.
The big blue and gray Terminators. I had a pair of those. Man, those were uncomfortable because they weren't Airs. People called them Air Hoyas. They didn't have that air sole. Those things were hard, man. They were like
sole. They had a thick sole on them.
But they look good.
They did.
They look great. So Georgetown was in the mix. I was thinking about Penn. Not really sure why, but I think I was going to apply there. I applied to Northwestern early. And then my mom was really adamant that I applied to at least a couple schools in California because, that's where we lived. And she went to UCLA, so I had to apply to UCLA. And I think I applied to Berkeley too. Once you applied to one of the University of California, you could just check different ones that you wanted to apply to. So I always thought I was going to go to UCLA growing up. I grew up kind of right after the Wooden era, the dynasty. So UCLA basketball was the big thing, right? So I dreamed of playing in Pauley Pavilion and going to UCLA. That was always my thing. But as I started researching, the journalism program just wasn't what I was looking for. So it was, and then I just wanted to get away. I loved living in California. You asked earlier, well, like, how could you leave? Like, I just wanted something different. I didn't want the cold. I didn't want change of seasons. Some people are like, oh, I want to go somewhere and experience fall and winter. Like, no, I'm good. But this was, I was ready to go somewhere else. And I always tell people, like, I wouldn't have had my career. I wouldn't have been at the LA Times for 10 years as a columnist if I hadn't left LA. because I would have had to try to kind of work my way up from the bottom as opposed to coming in at the top. And by starting in Chicago, the boss who hired me at the Sun-Times, Rick Jaffe, he was a sports editor then, and then he had been at the LA Times as he was making his way up, and he always told me, if I ever get back out there, I'm bringing you with me. And sure enough, 2 years later, he went back to the LA Times, and then 3 years after that, he hired me to come out there as a columnist. You know, I wasn't starting off entry level. I was basically starting off high level with a sports column where I could give my opinions. And going to Chicago enabled me to have my dream job in LA.
So look, do you remember your first column you wrote when you got out there? Yeah,
it was, I wanted to have this big thing, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go out and write off this game, actually, the Angels. So I was in Orange County, the Orange County edition that they used to have of the LA Times. So it was a lot of Angels and the Mighty Ducks and Cal State Fullerton, and then so the Clippers used to play a couple games at the Pond in Anaheim. Remember that? Because they are having trouble drawing people to the Sports Arena, which was their home arena. So they'd play, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 games a year in Anaheim. So anytime they came down there, I would write about that. But I was mostly supposed to write down there. So yeah, the first game I wrote, or the first column I wrote, the LA Times, was just off an Angel game. Ken Hill, the pitcher, whose son, remember his son made it. I'm trying to remember if his son was in NFL or Major League Baseball, but you know, we were talking about his son too, and I thought back, man, he was who I wrote about in my first column, the LA Times.
That's what's up. That's what's up.
Again, man, it's funny, because I remember being in high school. I used to work for our school newspaper. Agee asked you the first article you did, and you went to the LA Times. What was that first article in high school?
So it's funny. I told this story in my Hall of Fame speech. So it was about basketball, actually. It was a essay that I wrote for my English class in 9th grade. And my English teacher she was also the advisor for the school newspaper. And so she took my my essay, and she said, I'm going to run this in the school paper. I said, all right. And that was my first byline and my first story. And that's kind of what gave me the bug. So having that teacher, you know, I would say I had, you know, I grew up kind of modest background. Like, we lived in 2 basements when I was a kid. The first place I remember living in Santa Monica, we were in the basement under a house. You know, they had like a little sub apartment that some space underneath the house. So we lived in that basement. And then when we moved to New York, we were in the basement there. So, you know, I didn't come up in the penthouse at all. But what I did have was an elite education, you know, starting with, you know, going to Crossroads School. My mom, so she was an educator. She taught dance, and she worked in the education system. She'd go around to a lot of different schools. And when she saw Crossroads, she just noticed all the students seemed really engaged and vibrant. And she was like, I want that for you. So she got me in, and we got the financial aid, and I got that elite education opportunity there. And then, you know, I had an elite education opportunity at Northwestern. So I'm very appreciative. Like, I really feel like I owe everything that I had in my life thanks to the education that I received and the great teachers that I had, including Ann Colburn, who was my 9th grade English teacher. So, you know, I asked both you guys about the role of education to you and how you viewed it when we were on that panel. And, you know, I would say the reason behind that is because education has meant so much to me.
Yeah.
I love that, man. And shout out to your mom.
Yeah, she was great. And really, like, there were only a couple of things that she made me do, but it was really about school, like a lot of things. And then she really wanted me to go to UCLA, but by that point she was like, all right, if he wants to go to Northwestern, all right, you know, I'm going to support him in that. And she came around on my love of sport. It's funny. I tell the story, you know, the NFL Sundays, right? I'm watching football. It would come on at 10 in the morning in LA all the way through, you know, the Sunday night game would end at like 8 p.m. West Coast. And she walked through the living room one time. I've been sitting there for hours just on the couch watching football. She said, where did I go wrong? But once she realized that I could make a living doing this, there was a viable career path. She got behind it. But even before once I really showed that this was what I wanted to do, she got behind me. But first, I had to appease her and follow her choices. But they were both the right choices, and I'm thankful. And I wouldn't have the life I had without it.
Absolutely. Shout out to Mom. Well, man, you got so many things that Agee and I, we won't jump into this basketball world now, man, because we got to pick your brain. So much going on. And the first thing, well, actually, let's do this one first, Agee. Before we jump into the basketball thing, I saw a podcast you did, man, and you said something that I thought, just like it had me thinking, and I was thinking about my kids, and it was about, you was tying it into what it takes to succeed in sports journalism. And I wanted to know, because you gave 3 traits, and I wanted to know, do you still think those 3 traits apply today when you first did that interview?
I'm trying to remember the 3. I'm pretty sure one of them was curiosity.
Yes.
Yeah. So that one, I was just talking about that again this week. I still think that's the most essential one. You gotta be curious. You gotta ask questions, and that's the privilege of our job. Is I always tell people we get to ask questions. I thought it was so cool the video that the NBA did for the induction was showed me walking and talking to Kevin Garnett and with Kobe and Darren Williams and Kevin Durant, all these players that I got to talk to. And with this job, I tell people it's not that, I got to meet them. No, it's I got to ask them questions. And you just get used to that. You get used to, if something happens, I'm going to get to ask them. I got used to being able to do that with Michael Jordan. When I started here in Chicago, and I wasn't even initially on the Bulls beat, but if I needed to ask a question. So first year I was doing the Final Four back in, it was in New Orleans, the 93 Final Four. That was my first year working. And I wanted to do something looking back at the first Final Four there, which was when Michael Jordan, as a freshman, made that shot against Georgetown that really launched his career. And I wanted to ask, like, you ever think about what if he would have missed that shot? And he was like, no, I can't even think about it. I might not have been here, but, what did that shot mean to you? But the fact that, like, if I had a question that I wanted to ask Michael Jordan, I could go to a Bulls practice or a Bulls game and ask him a question, and just satisfy that urge or that nagging thing. So that curiosity, and then the blessing of this job is having the means to ask those questions and to get those things asked.
Tough ones.
Answered. Yeah. Sometimes it's tough ones. Yeah. Sometimes it's tough ones.
You may not, you like one of them questions. One of them questions where you may not like me right now when I ask this question.
Yeah.
But you're going to like me afterwards, but I got to ask the question.
But if it's something controversial, you got to like the fact that I'm giving you the chance to tell your side.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's something that it's actually kind of, you're doing them a service. When you ask them the tough question, you're actually doing them the service because they get to explain. So, why didn't you call a timeout? Or, if you're asking the coach, why did you make this substitution? Or why didn't you take the foul there? Or whatever question you want to ask that they're going to get criticized for. Well, you're allowing them a chance to explain and to give their perspective. So it's actually kind of when you ask the tough questions, you're actually doing people a favor because you're allowing them to give their side. People believe in fairness.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I think sports, along with life, the emotions behind it. Like, how do you, as a sports journalist, navigate through the emotions of all these different athletes? Because sometimes they take it personal. Sometimes, I've seen athletes like, I'll never talk to that sports writer ever again. How were you able to navigate through that?
So it's weird because being a journalist, you have to take your emotion out. You have to take your fandom out, right? It's not what you want to see or not who you want to see win the game. It's about who actually won it and why. Now you have to explain why they won it and, or who you really think will win the game based on your analysis, not what your heart wants to see happen, right? So, so I can take my emotion out of it, but realizing that you're dealing with people who have a lot invested in it. Although I will say this, like especially like when you cover an NBA team, for example, they have to take their emotion out because you realize the way that the players and the coaches view these is so different from the fans are. Because if you're a player, you cannot go like this up and down every game for 82 games. You just can't function that way. You can't be an emotional wreck if you lose, and you can't, act like you won the championship if you won game 3 in November, right? So seeing how the professionals deal with it, they're actually not that emotional. So I think, as a reporter, taking your emotions out, but also recognizing that the players professionally have to approach this as their job, and they're a little bit less emotional. So whether there are less emotions involved than you might think.
Gotcha.
Until you get to the last game. So now the finals is emotional, but also recognizing that emotions cloud things. One thing I learned when it was in college and someone would lose in a tournament and, they could be drafted, and whatever they say about going pro or not, because it's a very emotional, that's one time they are emotional because their season just ended. And so they might get caught up in the feelings like, oh, I love my teammates here and I love going to school here at University of North Carolina or whatever. I think I want to come back. That's their emotions talking then. And then a week or two later, they've done the due diligence and they're being told, hey, you could be a top 10 draft pick. Like, peace, I'm out. So I always say, man, never listen to what people say about major decisions right after they lost, because that's one time they are emotional. But for most of the year, you can take emotions out of the equation, both from the reporter's perspective and from the athlete.
You also seen that too from the players as they are nearing retirement too. They get more emotional up at the podiums now.
Yeah, and reflective. And, I remember, Kobe, his whole last year, he tried to play it cool and tried to act like, he was in control of everything. And so his last press conference, you're only allowed one question each, and I'd already asked my question. And then I realized, I'm like, hold up, he's still wearing his jersey. And, the only time you'd see him wear his jersey into the press conference was when they won a championship. That was something he got from Michael. Because Michael's thing with the Bulls was when you win, you got to wear your jersey all night. Wear it out to the club, like you're wearing your jersey all night. That's what we're doing when we win. And so Kobe instituted those rules with the Lakers. When you win, you got to wear your jersey all night afterward. But here they had one. It was the last game of the regular season. They didn't qualify for the playoffs. And this was his last game. And he shows up to the press conference, like 20 minutes after the game, and he's still wearing his jersey. And I already asked my question, but I turned to my colleague, Bill Plaskett, said, hey, man, ask Kobe if he doesn't want to take his jersey off because it's the last time he's going to wear it. And so he asked Kobe, and Kobe's like, no, I just haven't. At first he tried to deny it. He's like, you can tell yourself that if you want. It's a cute story, but like, no, that's not the reason. And then he came around and he's like, yeah, you're right. I don't want to take it off.
Wow.
That was that one moment where like he just did not want to let it go. He got to the end, he'd been bracing for it. He announced like back in November that this was going to be his last go round. But when that moment arrived, he was really having trouble taking that jersey off for the last time.
Man, boy, did we miss Kobe, man. No joke about that, man.
So one thing, guys, can I ask you? I can't help it. I go into journalism.
You just spoke his name, and I just got chills.
Yeah. Well, what's weird? It's like I still have a hard time processing that he's gone. He doesn't feel gone to me because he pops up every day somewhere, in media. In my photo archives, like a lot of, your phone will show you photos from this date 10 years ago or whatever, so he still pops up and stuff like that. His name is everywhere. So in some ways it doesn't feel like he's gone. But that moment of the last thing, because I was thinking, because we don't see the end arrive for you guys, in the movie is still, you guys are still kind of holding out hope, that it's going to happen for you. So when that moment did happen, when you realized, when was that for you guys? where were you, and when was that last game, and then what was that like for you?
I know for me, we were playing in the NIT finals, and Madison Square Garden, playing against Ace Custis and the Virginia Tech, and I just remember, man, even us getting to the NIT finals. Because my senior year, our team was not very good at all. We just wasn't good at all. I mean, we couldn't beat Memphis, couldn't beat Cincinnati, we couldn't beat any of these guys. And somehow we won enough games to get into the NIT. And we just went on a ride. Now, what made this such an emotional roller coaster? Because Hoop Dreams had come out that October. So every place we would go, people would literally thought they were still watching the movie. So but you're, and so many games, I wasn't even getting questions about the game. I was getting all questions about the movie and how's Arthur doing and the families and your brother. I mean, it was never about basketball. Nope. And I just remember, and this is why I kind of knew that was going to be over. So my son, Will Jr., was born that time. We played that Monday. My wife calls me Monday night and says that she's going into labor. Whoa. So I got to hop a plane Tuesday morning to get back to Milwaukee. Now, here's what's crazy, Jay. That day, Spike Lee gave me a ticket to sit next to him at courtside, and this is the game. Of course, Mike scores the double nickel.
Oh, man.
on this comeback. So I'm just like, I missed the double nickel game. But I tell my son all the time, hey, man, that's greatness on you. You was born on the double nickel game.
Yeah,
and I remember I wasn't going to go back. And my wife was like, you need to go back and finish. We'll be okay. So I hopped on the plane Wednesday morning. The game started at 6:30. I made it to Madison Square Garden at 6:15. Ran in, ripped off my clothes, got on my uniform, went out there, and man, I was so emotionally out of it. The coach didn't even put me in the game because I just wasn't there. And this is championship game, and I used to be so mad at the coach for that. I was like, man, dude, this is the last game of my career. But in retrospect, I go like, I probably would have hurt our chances even more because I was not there at all. But that was it for me, man. That emotional. I knew after that game. So this is what I did. And Agee, you probably did this too. So after the game, you got all your uniforms. You supposed to turn them in. Man, I didn't turn in nothing.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, I kept every uniform, gym shoes.
Is that the one hanging over you?
That's the one hanging over me. I had players signing stuff. Like, you do everything, man, because to me, after your senior year, who's ever that incoming freshman, that's your last connection really to the university per se in terms of the basketball, because coaches can change, new administration can change. So when that freshman team is done, you don't have the same connection with the school as you used to. So that was it for me.
Yeah, mine was University of Arkansas Little Rock. We played our last game. We got beat by University of New Orleans. But I was so mindset on, I know I ain't getting drafted, so now it's time to work and try to get into some NBA camps. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't really care about my last game, like emotion. I'm like, okay, on to the next. Like, what's the next opportunity? What's the next experience with this basketball thing? And then it happened just to be during that summer, the USBL. I got, that school year going into the summer, I got drafted #1 in the USBL by the Florida Sharks. And my coach was Eric Musselman. Don't like rookies. Oh, why? And so the Florida Sharks team, that was a new team in the USBL. So they looking at the whole fact of, the marketability of Hoop Dreams. Let's draft that guy. Didn't care about my basketball ability at all. Let's draft that guy, get him down here. And they had me doing everything except playing basketball. I'm down here.
All the media.
Right. Hey, Jay, I'm down at car dealerships signing posters and shit. I'm over here at the Denny's restaurant. the governor that gave me a key. I'm like, I just got here. What you giving me a key for? Like, it's crazy.
You gotta love it. You gotta love it. Jay, I want to jump into some of this basketball, man, because over the time you have said some things that I believe. First of all, I agree with you, but I want you to explain it to our audience in greater detail. Like, you put out there that LeBron James has never, ever really had to sacrifice. Explain to our audience what you mean by that.
So this is statistically, I noticed that when he went to Miami, his usage rate stayed the same, and Dwayne Wade's and Chris Bosh's usage rate went down. Usage rate is the percentage of possessions that end with the ball in your hands. Mm-hmm. And then when he went back to Cleveland, Kevin Love's usage rate went down. Kyrie Irving's usage rate went down. LeBron stayed the same. So just in terms of his play, right? So when he went around to all these different teams, and he never had to fit in, he never had to take a step back. So you compare that, for example, when the Celtics big three got together with KG, Ray Allen, and Paul Pierce, all of their individual numbers went down. Mm-hmm. But they got the result they were looking for. They won the championship that year. Mm. And so, and well, I wasn't saying that negative or positive for LeBron. It was just an observation that you're going to have to adjust to LeBron, and you're going to have to cede some things to LeBron when he comes to town. He ain't sacrificing for you. That's all.
I love that perspective on it, because I saw it even when he went to the Lakers. Russell Westbrook, people give him a hard time, but he wasn't the same guy playing with LeBron, because he wasn't able to play his style of basketball.
Yeah, secondary role, right?
Yeah.
So, I think you got to give Stephen Curry credit for taking a step back when Kevin Durant got there, and give Dwayne Wade credit for taking a step back for LeBron. And that really was what kind of kicked everything over, because I think there was some alpha dog stuff going on at first, and then Dwayne realized, like, hey, this dude is a man.
Right, he's next level.
It's still Wade County, right? Like, he still got introduced last, right? Like, things like that.
But you said LeBron got some
on the
unincorporated
out west, out past like Pembroke Pines and stuff. But yeah, so you have to give those guys credit for, like, their turf. LeBron or KD went to Golden State, LeBron went to Miami, and the big dogs, the top dogs there, were both willing to take a step back. LeBron never, in part because he was always going places, but he showed up and he was like, all right, my name's
Jay, let me tell you something. LeBron is a one of one, man. Like, and it's like you said, there's no one other than him. If he go to these teams, his usage rate is there's nobody else could have done that. Like, he's a one of one. MJ a one of one. Kobe a one of one. They like almost the same. They like little brother, big brother. But those guys are like just special dudes.
And the fact that LeBron, I one of my rare social media posts recently. I don't post that much, but I realized, like, man, LeBron's going to have these combinations of, oldest player to do this. Like, he had like 3 or 4 straight triple doubles, right?
Yeah.
Like, oldest player to do that. But then you think back, like, he's got those things from when he came in the league and he was the youngest player to score 1,000 points. All this other stuff that he did, right? Youngest. So, like, when you add up oldest player plus youngest player, that combination, that combined list, is going to be so long, no one's ever going to get close to that, So for the same guy to have the records for youngest to do and oldest to do, and as long as they keep, at least a year out of high school to get in the league, right? No one's going to touch any of his younger records. Maybe the older ones get broken, but his younger ones aren't going to get broken. And the combination of oldest plus youngest is never going to get touched either.
Which we got to ask you, man, the LeBron James, Bronny James saga. What's your take on this?
I think LeBron has earned it. He's entitled to this moment, and it's funny, maybe Bronny, but Bryant's earned it in the fact that we forgot this dude had a cardiac arrest on the court.
Right, man.
You know, so the sacrifice and the risk that he's taken to keep pursuing his dream, you know, go back to that dream work, you know, so, and LeBron earned it for sure. And what's the harm? You know, it was a second round pick.
J.A., I said, and you get some diehard sports fans that be talking about, well, he hasn't earned it the way other. Hey, man, the kid almost died. He's earned it. Okay? That alone. Like, what do you mean? I don't care who his daddy is, how he got there. What the kid almost died, and he was just like a human being, just like us, who had a dream, and it was almost snatched away.
And if we're going to talk nepotism in sports, how did the owner of the New York Knicks get the team from his daddy? How did the owner of the Oakland Raiders get the team from his daddy? How many names go look in the Warriors front office, and how many names match the last name of the principal owner? Go look at these coaching staffs around the league. Like, nepotism is everywhere in sports.
Everywhere.
So,
and not just sports, but just life.
Everywhere. We have White House positions being filled by offspring and in-laws, right? And this is like running the country. This ain't like the 12th spot on an NBA roster.
Right.
You know? So, like, that's the last thing in the world. The absolute last thing that bothers me is Ronnie James having a spot on the Lakers because of his dad. So what?
Man, I'm so glad to hear you say that, because that's my take on it. Like, why do we care so much? Like, what? Like, really? We're talking about. I mean, even if it wasn't a 55th pick, the kid up to this point, and let's say even we don't know what he would have done at USC if he had not had the cardiac arrest. But he was a McDonald's All-American. Quit acting like this kid can't play. He can play some basketball.
Right.
My other question for you, Jay, you man, I just, we got to throw this at you, and I'm sure you've answered this a million times. The GOAT debate, and are we sliding Kobe some in this GOAT debate?
That's what I'm saying. And you didn't see it up close, Jay.
Yes. All three.
I mean, it's funny because everyone's like, you know, LeBron's getting closer. His 4 championship, he's getting closer to Michael. I'm like, well, doesn't he have to pass Kobe first to get to 5 before he can get to 6? You know?
Right.
Like, shouldn't we mention it, Kobe? I will say the fact that, you know, LeBron just making an NBA Finals in 2007 with what he had around him at a very young age is something we didn't see from Kobe, right? LeBron, all 4 of his championships came with Finals MVPs, whereas Kobe, only 2 of the 5 did he win Finals MVP. You know, I think especially where we are today, I think it's pretty clear, you know, LeBron has surpassed Kobe. But, for Kobe to not even be included in the conversation anymore. You know, I just felt like we forgot about Kobe a little too quick to dismiss what he had done. You know, and through the 2008 Olympics, I think, as somebody pointed out to me, when it was crunch time in the gold medal game, who did they go to? Kobe. You know, so I think it was still Kobe through 2008. You know, I guess by 2011, maybe 2010, LeBron had passed him. I blame LeBron for the fact that they never met in the finals, by the way.
Oh, that
there were a couple of years.
Incredible that 1 year.
And it's funny because, like, the NBA has worked out where we always got, you know, Magic or Bird or Jordan and Barkley. Like, we almost always got the matchup that we wanted to see. Even Iverson versus Shaq, you know, they were the 2 previous MVPs.
Drexler versus Jordan.
Yeah.
Jordan,
you know,
Jordan really wanted to expound that one.
Yeah.
Like,
that one he wanted
that dude
you didn't draft me because you had this guy? That's the reason I wasn't drafted by the pro. You're like, oh, we're good. We got Clyde Drexler. Okay. 6 threes later and a shrug and all that, right? But we never got LeBron versus Kobe, and it's LeBron's fault more than Kobe's fault because, well, I don't know, you could argue LeBron was there in 2011 and Kobe didn't make it, but Kobe was there in 2009 and 2010, and LeBron couldn't get it done and meet him there.
Yeah,
when his team had the best record in the league, they had home court advantage throughout the playoffs and they couldn't do it. But LeBron wasn't ready, and then he wasn't ready in the 2011 finals, right? And then by 2012 or 12 and 13, it finally happened for him. So by then he had moved past him. At one point in 2006, I think Dwayne Wade had moved ahead of Kobe, just what he was doing, taking his team to the finals, and then I think Kobe came and took it back, right? It was the MVP a couple years later, and went to 3 straight finals. But I think for that brief moment, Dwayne was sitting on top.
I'm glad you mentioned that because obviously, I will admit I got some bias towards. I will admit, but Dwayne Wade after the Olympics, to me, had one of the greatest runs we had ever seen in NBA history, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that window that he put together. Like, I think Dwayne Wade was cheated out of MVPs a couple of times. Well, my question for you, obviously the Jordan-LeBron debate, but let me give you this first. I believe that LeBron is not the GOAT for this, and I really want your opinion on this. I think as great as LeBron has been, there have been times where I question whether he was the best player on the floor of either team. I've never had that question if Jordan was the best player on the team, whether they won or lost. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with you on the Jordan part. I'm not so sure what times you saw LeBron on the court and you questioned whether he was the best player
when
on
they
that.
won the championship. Kyrie's the best player. You don't think so?
I can't give you that one. I will say Kyrie was a monster in that game. So my thing is, what has Kyrie done without LeBron? When you look at what LeBron did without Kyrie, and then Kyrie struggled to make the playoffs.
Oh, absolutely.
LeBron.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I'm saying there are times when I've seen LeBron hand the ball over to other great players. When Jordan was playing, it was a foregone conclusion. Everybody knew. I mean, how great do you have to be when everybody in the building knew you're about to get the ball? People outside in the parking lot. And if anybody else shot the ball on the Bulls team, you're ready to run them out of the city. I don't know if we've ever felt that with LeBron, though.
LeBron's case is becoming increasingly strong, and
absolutely.
I would say, as someone who grew up on the '80s Lakers, if you'd have told me that there would be a single player, an individual who would come along and score more points than Kareem and have more assists than Magic, I would say, wow, that's going to be like the greatest player ever, right?
Absolutely.
So that's impressive. Like, that sentence is, to me, like the strongest argument in favor of LeBron. The reason I still, maybe I'm clinging to Jordan, like holding on to the shorts at this point, but the reason I won't let go is I've always ranked players based on, if I got to win a playoff game, who do I want on my team? Which player am I starting with? If we're drafting, we got to win a playoff game or a playoff series. How am I putting my team together? I still am taking Michael first. It's hard for me if his team and whoever you want to put around him is going against LeBron's team and that, like, you tell me LeBron's going to beat Michael 4 out of 7 in the series when, from 1991 through 1998, we only saw Michael lose one playoff series. And that was the year he came back. He only played 70 games in the regular season that year. So, like, that's the stat. I think it's 23 of 24 playoff series that he won, from 91 through 98, something like that.
And that's tough.
That's
tough. And I agree with you.
Or 25 and 1, something like that. I always forget the exact numbers. Basically, like, He went like 25-1 in playoff series. And again, I give LeBron a lot of credit for going to 8 straight finals.
That's incredible.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
But it's not the same as winning 6 straight, you know, or 6 out of 7.
Two three-peats.
Playoffs that you went through.
And don't get me wrong, man. When I look at LeBron, because I literally had an opportunity to both of their careers, Jordan and LeBron, I think Jordan caught so much of our imagination that it's been difficult. This is just for me. It's been difficult for me to replace him with anybody. Because prior to that, coming up, Dr. J was that dude.
Dr. J was our shit.
You wanted to be the guy that can palm the ball and go under the rim and scoop it.
And fly.
Yeah.
So you needed somebody to come along to surpass that level of talent. It might surpass that.
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't seen another guy take the game to that level. Now, I will say this about LeBron. I think LeBron is a category and there is nobody under him. Like, I could put Jordan in the category and I say we can throw, you know, Dwayne Wade under there.
Kobe
under there. Grant Hill and so forth and so on. You got, you know, Wilt. You got Shaq. You know, you could put all these, you know, the power forwards. You could put whoever you want at the top, Barkley or Carmelo, and go down there. But when I look at LeBron, I don't know if we got, because people say Magic, but I go like, yeah, but Magic wasn't athletic like that.
Right. But I think Magic, first of all, enabled LeBron. I think without Magic, LeBron comes up. Remember, he's almost as tall as Tim Duncan.
Yes.
So without Magic, I think LeBron comes up as more of a power forward.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So, you know, I don't put, it's not like Magic falls in the LeBron category, but I put LeBron in the Magic category, but he is a more athletic version of him. So it's like a combination, like LeBron is like a combination of Magic with the athleticism of young Michael. And I think the skill level too of Michael. You know, like there's 2 parts of Michael. There was the young, athletic, flying over everybody, and then there was the footwork, fall away, you know, intelligence, outthink you version of Michael in the second three-peat. And I think LeBron combines both of those versions. Like now he's scoring, you know, fall away, dream shakes, right? Like he's got all these weapons in his arsenal that he didn't used to have that he's added to his game. And so he's got both those things. He's got that Magic court vision and unselfishness and versatility with the Michael skill set. You know, he formerly had Michael's athleticism. So think about it, in a lot of ways, it's the ultimate player.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Hey, and look, the dude from almost turned 40, and the thing about it is that he's doing all of this by what? Staying in fucking tip-top shape.
Which is like Kareem, right?
Yeah.
Like Kareem was the previous standard for a star aging gracefully and, you know, well past his prime. So he's like Magic plus Michael plus Kareem.
Right, add Kareem in that too. I mean,
and it's funny, Kareem was ahead of the game because Kareem was doing like that yoga and flexibility. And one of the Nike guys told me that the whole key to LeBron is that flexibility. It's not about like strength training, but like he's kept his body very flexible. That's one of the reasons he hasn't had these major injuries. And that's kind of what's enabled him to do this. Core strength and flexibility.
But it's something else too, though. I'm thinking, Jay. It's something else with this guy, man. Because there's no way, care how great of a shape you are in, a 40-year-old should not be one of the top 5 players, not in the National Basketball Association. He just shouldn't be on no level.
So what you trying to say, Will? He taking some Balco?
I ain't saying he's taking anything. Please do not put me out there. I ain't saying he's taking nothing. He might be on them roast sparks, but I ain't saying.
Why Savannah? Look, why Savannah and the chef and them can't be making his favorite protein meals?
Listen, I'm sure he's getting everything he needs, but I'm just saying, there's no way. Clearly,
he said there's no way
that a 40-year-old, because he's getting better. That's what's scary right now, man. He's getting better. His jump shot is silky smooth. He moves like a freight train now. You get in his way, you can't stop him. And then his agility, man. This, and he controls the game. I mean, this is incredible what we're seeing.
as much of a dreamer I am predicting this to happen. I'm gonna speak it into the world. LeBron gonna play another year. I mean, I don't know if he gonna play after that, but he gonna play another year. Bronny gonna been and came into his own and adjusted. And I don't know what game it gonna be, but LeBron gonna pass the ball to Bronny, and Bronny gonna hit the game-winning shot.
Man, that's all that's left for LeBron, right? That moment.
What?
I think he wants to come back. He'll play another year for two things. One, he wants that farewell tour.
Absolutely.
He's just gonna send out a release saying I'm retired. He wants that full farewell tour, right?
That's right. That's right.
But B, I think he wants a moment like that. He got the moment of sharing the court with him, but I think he wants to to really set up the succession.
Yes. Be like,
I don't even know how he's been able to play. I don't know how he played that game. Because if I was out there playing and my son came out on the court with me, I'm done. I'm done.
He's like, dog, you losing it.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been able to, I would have just been watching him. You couldn't, I don't know how, even for both of them, that they were able to, man, let's just let you know that the pedigree that's in both of them, they were able to play that game like they were just teammates. There's no, I'm just talking about me. I wouldn't have been a teammate. I'm like, man, that's my son. I don't know what's going on.
I thought it was so cool. They had LeBron mic'd up, and when he was talking to Bronny and saying, you see the intensity they're playing, he was trying to get him ready, right? You see what the intensity is like. You got to be able to match that, but just don't try to do too much. I love that fatherly advice. It wasn't just him talking to a teammate, right?
Right.
It was fatherly advice. It was so cool. And the whole thing was so cool. How could you hate on that, man?
You can't hate on that. Yeah. I got so many other questions for you, Jay. I want to throw this at you, man, because we're talking about Jordan, and I want to keep it here for a bit because you spent so much time with the Bulls and The Last Dance. First of all, let's just put out there, it was incredible. It's the time we needed it. It helped us get through COVID. I don't care what anybody say. That helped ease COVID a lot. I mean, the pain we was going through. And I'm like, it's like only Mike can do something like that. That's why I keep saying he the GOAT. But did The Last Dance reestablish who MJ is to this game?
I think it did. And my theory was that's why he put it out, because LeBron was starting to get all that heat. Now, I asked that to two people to work with him on his team, and they said no, there were other factors. It wasn't a response to LeBron. But remember, he had to sign off on everything being shot originally, and the NBA was never going to release that footage until Michael and some other key people signed off on it. His people say the reason that they decided to go forward with the project when they did. So what a lot of people don't know is at one point they were going to do it 10 years earlier or something, and they had done a whole round of interviews. They interviewed Michael and Phil and a bunch of other people. They have a whole separate round of interviews that they had done. Wow. And then I'm not sure why, but it never got going then. What they say was the impetus was that OJ Made in America series on ESPN, because that went 6 or 7 episodes, right? And so they're like, all right, now that we've established that it doesn't just have to be 90 minutes or 2 hours, it can be multiple hours, different segments, different episodes. That's the way that we want to do the Jordan one. It deserves that. And so once that shift happened, they said, okay, now we know we can really do it and have it, we can do justice to Michael Jordan's story. That's what they say. So that's why it kind of came around when it did. And like you said, it wound up being the exact right time to drop something like that, because we had nothing else going on in our lives.
Nothing else going on. And who else can get the whole world at one time? Now, of course, we gotta transition into this, because as great as it wasn't all good for everybody. There's a teammate that didn't take too kindly to The Last Dance, and of course I'm talking about Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen's, whatever it is it legit or illegitimate?
I know Scottie, and I've known him 30 years, and it just disappoints me. I haven't had a chance to talk to him about what's going on and why he feels this way, because I didn't think the Last Dance really shamed him or deprived him of any credit. You hear especially like Chip Schaefer, the Bulls trainer, giving Scottie so much credit just for gutting his way through that Game 6 in Utah. There's that 3.8 second, or the 1.8 second play. And they talk about that and Scottie's contract issues, but that was part of the story. Do you think Michael wanted to talk about the gambling stuff and all that? Right? They were trying to tell the full story.
And Jay, my thing was this: if anybody was understanding and really listening, Michael Jordan and even damn Jerry Reinsdorf told him I wouldn't sign that contract. What do you mean? What they told you? You like, well, my family needed money and they needed to be taken care of, so I signed the contract, thinking in good faith that we was going to be able to renegotiate and come back to the table and say, hey, you done this for the organization, we're going to reward you like this. That didn't happen. Look who you was dealing with, Jerry Reinsdorf. He's like, oh, hell no.
Any Chicago sports team ever did that.
And then most of it had to do with Jerry Krause, of the moves that he made. He was like, yo, you got Michael. Scottie then came into his own. I'm not going to pay him. I'm going to use the rest of this money to build out the roster so we can keep it, like this. But you pay Tony them more than you pay Scottie. You see what I'm saying?
And what's sad is that, so for example, the Lakers, you just saw it, Hall of Fame weekends, all the 80s era Lakers, that won multiple championships together, they can all reunite, right? They all got together for Michael Cooper's induction in the Hall of Fame and enshrinement. So Magic and James Worthy and Byron Scott and Michael Thompson, Kareem would have been there if he'd been feeling better. They all got together a couple years ago for a reunion in Maui. They all got together on a Zoom to let Pat Riley know that they're going to do a statue for him. They can still reunite and hang out and reminisce and share. And the 90s Bulls can't do that, and it's so sad that there's this animosity. So, they tried to do that Ring of Honor for the Bulls at the United Center last year, and it turned into a fiasco. Michael wasn't there. I think Scottie was there, or you don't see, when's the last time they were in the same room together? And it's just sad that team that meant so much to so many people, you guys were teenagers watching that team come up, right? What it meant to this city, and we can't have them all get back together. I know someone that's trying to work on something that would hopefully bring people together, and I'm just not sure they're going to be able to get everyone in the same room at the same time.
And I get that. My question is, though, where did it go wrong? Because if winning solves all problems, and obviously it must not, where did it go wrong? Because Scottie asked Michael, man, be the person that, who introduces me into the into the Hall of Fame. I'm thinking that these guys are best friends, and obviously, we know the situation with his son and Scottie Pippen's ex-wife, but it seemed like there was something prior to this because I read Scottie's book, man. It's some interesting things that he talks about in his book that wasn't even put out there. So where do you think it fell off at? The first 3 championships or the second 3 championships?
It was after, because
it was after.
One of the reasons Michael came back was because Scottie was. So one of the questions I got to ask him one year at the All-Star weekend, I ran into Michael at an event. This is 2008 or something, and more recent than that, actually. But remember, in '94, the Bulls almost traded Scottie to Seattle for Sean Kemp. And I asked Michael, I said, would you come back if it was Sean Kemp with the Bulls instead of Scottie? And he said, no, I wouldn't have, because nothing against Sean, but I knew Scottie, and I was comfortable with Scottie, and I wouldn't want to play with someone new and start that chemistry up. So Michael came back to the Bulls in part for Scottie Pippen and to be with Scottie Pippen. So it was there. And I think Scottie also came to appreciate Michael. Scottie was happy that Michael retired. Scotty wanted his chance to be alone in the spotlight, right? And then he found out it's careful what you ask for, right? Yeah. And so remember there was that famous thing, Scotty,
he didn't go back in the game.
Up the shoe and point. Right, there was that moment, and then the next year, that's when the Michael returning rumors were floating around, and remember Scotty points at the Jordan logo on the shoe and was like, "Come back, Mike!" Like now he wanted him back. So the break, that break actually did both of them good. I think it allowed Michael to clear his head. It allowed him to get a break from listening to Phil Jackson because you can start to tune a coach out after a while, and it enabled Scotty to appreciate Michael. So the break actually, I think, helped enable that second repeat. You know, a little time apart, everyone appreciated each other a little bit more when you're apart, and then you come back together and run off another three of them. So, you know, and then the, you know, I think the bond continued for a while after that, but then I really think it was the process of this Last Dance documentary that reopened some old wounds.
Hey, I wonder who was the major parts of the people who had to sign off on that to make the Last Dance become the Last Dance. I wonder who those names was. I mean, of course, it was Michael,
Jeffrey Jordan.
Right.
But I hear the company. It was like because they had been once they had got wind of that Jerry Krause was like, I'm not bringing the team back. They said that's when they decided to start creating that footage, and I guess the MGM or some Vegas film company, that's who they partnered with to shoot it and do all that.
But it was NBA Entertainment, you know. So the NBA shot it. NBA Entertainment, based out of New Jersey, that's who shot all the films. So the NBA had it. Adam Silver, in his role at NBA Entertainment, actually was the one who gave it the green light to go ahead and shoot it. But they did put those provisions. So it's not only Michael. I'm sure Phil and Jerry Reinsdorf, but Michael's people as well. You know, they all had to sign off. I never got the list of all the parties. One thing I know, making the film, it was complicated because every last thing did have to be signed off by the NBA. It did have to be signed off by Jordan, among others. But I know both of those entities had to sign up because, I did that Last Dance podcast with B.J. Armstrong, and there was stuff that had to be vetted by the NBA and Jordan's people as well.
And BJ is a whole nother story. We got to get you back for that one. But, man, we got a few more questions. I know we had you for a while, but really quick, I want to ask you, what's wrong with today's NBA? Viewership is down. People are just not as interested as they used to be. And, of course, this year in particular, I don't think I've ever seen a year where major stars are hurt as much as they are. I mean, injuries are just, like, rampant in the NBA. Agee and I, we talking about this just last week on a NBA update where we've discussed we don't even know if we're going to ever get to see the best of Zion Williams. And this was like one of the guys who the NBA was really looking forward to building and growing. But overall, what's wrong with the game today that it doesn't have the same credence as it used to?
Yeah, three things. The homogenization of the style of play. Everyone's coming down and shooting threes now, right? So you don't have that variety, because it did used to be like the Laker fast break against the bad boys, rough and tumble Pistons, right? That clash of different styles and what they were trying to do. So everyone comes down and jacks threes, and that's just not entertaining or appealing to me. One. Two, the fact that you really don't have rivalries because the players are changing teams and breaking up and bonding, and we don't see the same opponents meeting in the playoffs year in and year out, right? Building up those rivalries like the Bulls and the Pistons used to do, or the Lakers and the Celtics in the finals. You don't have those. And then three, you alluded to it, that next wave hasn't taken over. So could have been like Zion and Ja. Their turn to run things, and Ja had all his issues, social media issues that Ja had, and Zion's had his injuries, and so as great as it was watching LeBron and KD and Steph Curry at the Olympics bring that gold medal home, it's a little sad that that should have been the showcase for the next generation.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, we shouldn't have even needed those three guys. There should have been the guys ready to take over for them. I'll ask you guys, because we kind of saw it in the film and you came through it, right? A lot of people blame the AAUization of basketball in America. I push back on that a little bit because I mean the guys like LeBron and KD, like they came up through that, right? And they're the best players in the world. You know, American basketball is still the top form of basketball when you get our best players, put them together. So, like, I'm not convinced that but that's been the culprit in a lot of people's lives. What do you guys think when people blame AAU for ruining American basketball?
I don't like that one bit because that has nothing to do on teaching the kid the fundamentals of the game of basketball. You can do that outside for free on the basketball court. So I don't like them blaming the AAU. What I love about the AAU, it gives those kids, the ones that you know that will be in the street, distracted with something else, but you got them out somewhere in Cincinnati, you got them in Indiana, you got them, they away and they playing, they understanding basketball brotherhood. They probably ain't never ever been on a team, but they're away. Man, the AAU have saved inner city lives. That's what I say.
I agree with all that, but I also want to add this to it. I think what's missing from AAU is that you don't see the guys. When you bring everything into one storehouse, it limits the people that can play. So if you're not, the Nike EYBL, or if you're not part of Steph's Under Armour top whatever, or Adidas top 60, it was fortunate that we get a guy like Ja Morant. But the truth is, Ja Morant shouldn't have a Hoop Dreams right now because he was in some back of the woods gym, and this coach just happened to hear some people screaming and stuck his head in. Wasn't even there to see him. So I think on that level, AAU needs to fix that. I think what AAU also needs to do is there's too many mom and pop teams, and I say this with the most up respect for those moms and dads out there trying to coach. But the truth is, there's a difference between bringing snacks to a game and coaching your kids. That's a huge difference. So.
More than Capri Sun. So.
Any more than Capri Sun. So I think that's been watering down the game. So you can go to some of these tournaments, and there's over 450 teams in there. And so you got 20 coaches coming in, and then I think this is, and again, I'm for AAU, but I also think this has hurt AAU. Now, as a college coach, I ain't got to show up where it matters anymore. See, one of the things that I appreciate, even going back to Kevin O'Neal, man, I remember when I was playing in the playground, they came down there to see me play outside. You don't see that kind of hustle anymore in the college game, and they don't have to do it now because they can just go to one place and pick and choose.
And I want to add this too, because I said that's the good thing about AAU. Now the bad thing about AAU is that, like Will said, you got some of these teams, and these kids can't even play. But the parents and some of these other people who are coaching these teams, they're actually in it for the money. You see some of these organizations, you're charging these kids and these teams $450 to come to this place to hoop when basketball was the cheapest game that we had. Why would I go and do that when I'm just gonna take you to West? We're gonna get on a plane, fly to New York, and I'm gonna take you to West 4th Street, and I'm gonna see if you can handle yourself.
Right. No fees, no entry fees.
You can't get noticed that way.
What?
But you can't get noticed that way.
In New York, somebody can notice you.
I can take you there. I can fly you out there. I can take you there. But again, if you're not connected to it, let's just be honest with it. If you're not connected to one of the big three gym shoe companies, you're limited in your visibility. I mean, that's just the reality. I mean, and truthfully, if you're not really under the Nike circuit, you're gonna miss out on all of the major opportunities. It's not like when you and I was playing. We were wearing New Balance in school. They didn't care that we had on New Balance.
No, but I'm saying you had the Nike All-American. You know, I wasn't a Nike All-American. You was a Nike All-American, so you still gotta have that.
But you didn't have to wear Nikes to be a Nike All-American. You do now. You can't wear. Matter of fact, I'm in San Antonio. We don't have we got decent basketball talent here. But when we get great talent, Houston comes and grab that great talent. Dallas comes and grab that great talent. You know what they tell them? Hey man, you ain't got to show up to practice, just show up to games. Wow. So they'll just show up to the major tournaments and play in those games. But Jay, I got one more question for you. Then my man Agee got a final question for you. But you said something earlier that I just got to go back to, because you know my mind holds on to a lot of things. But you said this was about social media, and you said you don't post as much as you used to. And my question is, now with everybody having a podcast, everybody's having, social media has become like this window to the world to reach. Why did you pull back?
As Twitter declined and just started to be a more toxic place, I just realized, okay, I don't need to be on here subjecting myself. And also you just realize, do other people need to share these things? Like things that I used to tweet, I just kind of put in my group chat now. So maybe only 5 or 6 people need to hear this or see this, as opposed to 5,000 or 6,000 or 50,000 or what. At one point my Twitter following was like over 600,000. I don't know how many of those were real people. Now I'm on Blue Sky and Threads, and it's like 8,000 people each, and maybe get like 20 responses. But does everyone need to hear what I think about everything? Not so much. We've overshared. Man, I read a fascinating article about how people are developing these relationships with chatbots and these artificial intelligence chatbots. And in some cases, I get it, because they're like, hey, they're always there. I can log in at 2 a.m. I don't have to worry about waking them up. We can have a conversation. I can vent, express some things. But also, if I post something, even if you respond to it, that's not a real interaction. That's not like us getting on the phone and talking, or even, this forum where we're here seeing each other and we're having a conversation. We're not in person, but at least we're seeing each other and talking to each other and hearing each other. And so, I just like that more. And, I'm lucky enough, people like you still care enough about what I have to say to invite me on these podcasts. So like, I still,
Absolutely.
I don't have my own podcast right now. That might change within a year or two. But, for now, like, if I have something to say, I'll hop on a podcast and say it. I'm still doing Around the Horn once a month. I can get my views out there. Like, if I have something really that I need to get off my chest, I can do so on a much bigger platform. So, social media is just so much noise. Like, it's kind of nicer having it quiet. I got my noise canceling headphones on. Every time I'm walking around the city, man, I got my AirPods in. The AirPod Pro 2s, the noise cancellation on them is so good, man.
Are you serious?
So I spend so much time trying to tune people out that why would I want to kind of contribute to the noise by putting stuff all out there on social media? I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
There you go.
Like me at the gym, man. I used at the gym. Right. If you see it on, first of all, there needs to be a rule. If you at the gym and you got headphones, that means do not. Yes, there should be a do not disturb sign.
Right. If I got to do this, you already losing me. I'm already mad at you, man.
That's right. I go there to work out. If I need conversation, I go to the barbershop.
They tapping you on your shoulder. Sir, right. When you going to be done with the treadmill?
When I'm done.
That's right.
Look at the clock here. It says 3 minutes and 20 seconds, right? That's how much time I got left.
That's right. Agee, hit him with that last question, man.
Jay, man, we done had you for a minute, man. Glad you appreciate your time, man. we definitely follow you. Big fan of yours and your work, what you do. Very proud of you. Right now, you're a professor at Northwestern, right? You're teaching a class there. Besides that, what is the next chapter in Mr. Adande's hoop dream?
Wow. It's weird being on this side, being, thinking about the end more. There's really not much more I want to do. That Hall of Fame honor just felt like such a crowning achievement.
Yeah.
So, I could see doing a podcast. I have a couple podcast ideas. So, just what the world needs, another podcast, right?
Hey, that's right. Come on, man. Join the world, man. That's enough room for everybody.
I really have fun doing this. Funny, during the pandemic, I did that Last Dance podcast, and then I did that Redeem Team Top podcast with Jack McCallum. And it was really fun to do. It's a nice pandemic-proof occupation. You can do it at home, and I would go in my closet because it was the quietest room in my apartment. So I was just sitting in the closet recording podcasts, and so I could see doing that some more. But I don't have that much more to say.
I don't know, man.
I had to say, like I've already written it, and like at the stories that I wanted to tell. The cool thing is, like, I kind of told the stories I wanted to tell. I was able to write about the Bulls in the 90s and write about Kobe and Shaq Lakers and, write about the Spurs. And then really kind of, to me, the story ended with the Warriors and this new era. So the Warriors brought in this new era that we're in there. And so I was able to cover kind of the beginning and the launch of that era with their championships. And, that's enough. I got students that are coming up that they want to tell the stories. So I'm going to leave it to them. Let's give them their chance to tell these stories. I'm good.
I get that.
And, I've done it and been certified. And
there you go.
So there's not a whole lot more that, maybe my book, I'll write my story, tell my story.
Yes.
Your memoir.
And put that out there.
Yeah,
so
there you go.
That's the only story really I feel left to tell is mine, because it hasn't all been put together and assembled in one place. So maybe you'll see a book from me down the road.
Hey, the best is yet to come, man. Hall of Fame, J.A. Adande, man, on the show, man. Give it up to him.
Listen,
fellas.
Hall of Fame, baby. Hall of Fame.
I love